Somewhere in the mountains of Central Asia, there is a valley that locals refuse to enter. Not because of superstition, not because of old myths or folklore, but because of something they have seen with their own eyes. Birds fly in and they don't fly out, they fall mid-flight, no warning, no struggle, just down. Starlings, eagles, migratory geese passing through on their way south, all of them dropping out of the sky like stones. The valley floor is littered with feathers and small bones. Some bodies are fresh, some are old, but there are no predators here. No traps, no hunters, just silence, and the occasional thud of another bird hitting the ground. Scientists who visited the area said they felt fine walking through it. No dizziness, no pain, but every bird that entered the airspace above the valley died within minutes. The locals have a name for this place. Translated roughly, it means the place where wings stop working. For decades, no government acknowledged it existed. No study was officially published. No explanation was ever given to the public. And then, in 2019, a geologist named Artem Volkov went in with a monitoring kit and a notebook. He stayed for 3 days. On the 4th day, his team drove out to find him. He was sitting at the edge of the valley, completely still. His equipment was smashed, and every page of his notebook had been torn out. What he found in that valley, and what was done to keep it quiet, is one of the strangest environmental stories never told. Artem Volkov was not a man who scared easily. He had spent 15 years working in remote geological zones across Russia and Kazakhstan. He had crawled through collapsed mine shafts. He had camped alone on active fault lines. He was methodical, skeptical, the kind of man who needed data before he believed anything. So when a colleague mentioned the valley in passing, almost like a joke, Artem didn't laugh. He wrote it down. The location was in the Tian Shan range, near the border of Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. A narrow valley, roughly 4 kilometers long, sitting at an elevation of about 2,400 meters. No village inside it, no road leading through it, just a deep cut in the mountains that most maps didn't bother to label. Artem started making calls. He reached out to 2 ornithologists in Almaty who had heard rumors about the site. Both of them confirmed the same thing. Unusual bird mortality reports had been circulating among local shepherds for at least 30 years, but no formal investigation had ever been launched. No government department had claimed responsibility for the area. It was as if the valley existed in a gap, geographically real, officially invisible. Artem applied for a research permit. It was denied, no reason given. He applied again, denied again. On his 3rd attempt, he received a response that wasn't a denial. It was something stranger, a single line, it said. This area does not fall under standard environmental jurisdiction. Artem stared at that sentence for a long time, because in 20 years of field research, he had never once seen wording like that. Not for any location, anywhere. That single line changed everything for Artem. He started digging, not into the valley itself, not yet, but into the paperwork surrounding it. He contacted a former Soviet environmental archive in Bishkek. A clerk there, an old man named Daniil, had worked in regional land classification for over 40 years. Artem described the location, the coordinates, the valley's rough boundaries. Daniil went quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That zone was flagged in 1974. Flagged, not studied, not investigated, flagged, and then deliberately left out of public environmental registries." Daniil didn't know why, but he remembered the file because of something unusual attached to it. A handwritten note from a Soviet-era ministry official that said, "No personnel to enter without gas monitoring equipment." Gas monitoring equipment, not radiation gear, not biological hazard suits. Gas monitoring. That was the first real clue. Artem began to build a theory. Slowly, carefully, the Tian Shan region sits on top of a complex network of geological fault lines. Deep underground, pockets of natural gas, including carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide, can accumulate for centuries without surfacing. But sometimes a shift in pressure, a minor tremor, or even a seasonal temperature change can cause these gases to vent upward. Silently, invisibly, at ground level, a human might feel nothing. The concentration too low, too diffuse, but birds fly directly through the densest part of the invisible column. Their respiratory systems are 10 times more sensitive than a human's. It would take seconds. The theory was clean, logical, almost comforting, but then Artem found a second note in Daniil's archive, dated 1987, and it had nothing to do with geology. The 1987 note was typed on official Soviet ministry letterhead. It was addressed to a department that no longer existed, a subdivision of the USSR's Committee for Special Territorial Research. Most of its contents had been redacted, long black bars covering entire paragraphs. But three things were still visible: a set of coordinates, matching the valley almost exactly, a project code, R7 atmospheric field study, and a single sentence at the bottom that had somehow escaped the censor's pen. It read, "Avian mortality confirmed, as expected. Ground-level human subjects reported no adverse effects. Ventilation pattern stable." Artem read it 3 times. Ground-level human subjects. This wasn't a geological accident. This wasn't a natural gas vent that nobody had noticed. Someone had been there, someone had tested it, someone had watched birds fall from the sky and written the words, "as expected." That meant they knew, not just that the valley was dangerous, but exactly how it was dangerous, and precisely who it would affect. Artem contacted a former Soviet atmospheric scientist named Dr. Ruslan Bekhtov, then in his late 70s and living in Almaty. Bekhtov had spent 30 years refusing to talk about his government work, but when Artem read him that sentence over the phone, "Avian mortality confirmed as expected," the old man exhaled slowly. And then he said something that made Artem's hand go still on the page. He said, that valley was not natural. He said the gas wasn't coming from below. He said it was put there. Put there. Those 2 words sat in the air like something heavy. Artem asked Bekhtov to explain slowly from the beginning. The old man was quiet for almost a full minute. Then he started talking. In the early 1980s, the Soviet military was experimenting with something they called atmospheric denial zones. The concept was straightforward and deeply unsettling. Find a valley with the right geography, narrow, enclosed, with specific airflow patterns, and use it as a natural containment vessel. Then introduce a heavier-than-air compound into the upper atmosphere of that zone, something that would settle at a specific altitude, too high for ground-level humans to be affected, but perfectly positioned to intercept anything flying through the mid-air corridor. Birds, surveillance drones, low-altitude aircraft. The Soviet military wasn't trying to kill birds. The birds were just the proof that it was working. Bekhtov said the compound used in the R7 study was a modified organophosphate, a class of chemicals originally developed from nerve agent research. Diluted, stabilized, designed to persist in cold mountain air for years without degrading. He said there were at least 3 other valleys like it, scattered across Central Asia, all of them still active. Artem asked him how he knew all of this. Bekhtov said, "Because I designed the delivery system." The silence that followed was long. Then Artem asked the question that had been building since the beginning. He asked, if the compound was meant to last years, how long had it actually been active? Bekhtov's answer was not what he expected. He didn't say years, he said. It was never meant to stop. Never meant to stop. Artem sat with that for a long time. A compound released into a mountain valley sometime in the early 1980s, still active, still working 4 decades later. No cleanup, no deactivation, no public warning, just a flagged file in a forgotten archive and an old man who had never told anyone the truth until now. Artem made his decision that same night. He was going in. He drove to the valley with 2 colleagues, a field geologist named Marat and an independent environmental analyst named Sergei. Both knew the risks. Both came anyway. They entered on foot at dawn. The valley was exactly as described. Quiet, still, beautiful even. Pale grass, grey rock, thin mountain light. Within 20 minutes, Marat spotted the first body, a large hawk, wings spread, lying flat against the ground as if it had simply been switched off mid-flight. Artem's gas monitors spiked at roughly 4 meters above ground level. The compound was still there, faint but present, hovering in an invisible layer just above their heads. They documented everything: soil samples, air readings, photographs, and then, on the second morning, a vehicle appeared at the valley entrance. No markings, no plates. Two men got out and stood watching them from a distance. They didn't approach, they didn't speak, they just waited. Artem packed his equipment and walked out calmly. That night, back at camp, he reviewed his notebook. 12 pages of data, detailed, complete. By morning, it was gone. No broken lock, no sign of entry. Just empty pages. The valley is still there today. Still unlabeled, still unacknowledged, and every migratory season, the birds still fall. If stories like this matter to you, the ones that never make the news, subscribe, because there are more of them, far more than you'd expect.